welcome everyone to this webinar on entrepreneurial series brought to you by CMC. My name is Gayatri. I am technical team leader for microelectronics and also member of the CTO office at CMC Microsystems. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of how we're going to organize today's talk and a little bit of an intro to CMC for anyone who might not be familiar with us. So this presentation is part of a series of webinars that we are offering, where we have talks by leading industry experts who are entrepreneurs and who are in the field of hardware, microelectronics, and have their own startups and have been doing great in this field. Today's presenter is Tony Pialis. He is CEO of Alphawave IP in Toronto. And this is the second webinar in this series. And before I hand it off, Tony, I'd like to give a little bit of an overview about CMC, who we are. Basically, CMC is the manager for Canada's National Design Network. CNDN is a major research facility recognized by CFI's MSI, the Major Science Initiatives Program. And we are support a Canada-wide collaboration between 67 universities and colleges, supporting over 10,000 academics and over 1,000 companies that participate in the design, make, and test offerings to make prototypes that CMC supports. And we have a number of outcomes that we report on, and we are very proud of all the associations that we have with professors, the academics, the students, the companies, and the startups they are able to spin off from their research and technology development activities. And we basically have our organization divided into three major product and service areas through which we provide services to our CNDN. CAD Fab Lab. CAD is providing access to CAD tools, fabrication services through the fab, which includes prototyping and packaging services. And through Lab, we provide access to contract engineering services, equipment loan, and also R&D activities that lead to platform development that can be reused again by the CNDN. Our services also reach out beyond Canada now, and as a promotion for all the expanding services that CMC is offering, we have new subscriber pricing, which is available exclusively to academics within Canada, CMC subscribers. And this is just a top level view of what the pricing looks like for per millimeter access for various technologies. So listed here is foundry access through AMF, AMS, MEMSCAP, ST Teledyne, TSMC, and Global Foundries. To access Global Foundries information, we require a separate NDA, but the big picture is that it's very low cost right now, and we go through a review process once you apply for designs for fabrication, but our aim is to enable more prototyping activity within Canada. And we'll be happy to connect with you and support any requests you may have and see how we can help you. So another piece I wanted to quickly mention was that we have this virtual incubator environment, the VIE program, through which we are supporting startups. And because it's very relevant to this effort in organizing this webinar series, where we are aiming to support this entrepreneurial spirit in our researchers, this will be a great way to leverage CMC's support. And Oleg, who is also on this call, he is our application engineer and is leading this effort on VIE program, and we'll be happy to answer any questions associated with this program later. So getting right into our theme for today on the entrepreneurial series, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Tony. He got his bachelor's and master's degree in electrical engineering from the University of Toronto, and he has been the co-founder of 3 semiconductor IP companies, all exclusively targeting connectivity IP. Some of you may be familiar with a lot of his activities and these companies. Snowbush Microelectronics, which later got acquired by Gennum, Semtech, and now currently part of Rambus. As part of his next venture, which got acquired by Intel in 2012, where Tony went on to become the VP of Analog and Mixed Signal IP. And being an alumnus from Intel, I recognize this very prestigious award that Tony received at Intel. It's called the Intel Achievement Award. And for his team, they won it for successfully delivering the next generation Ethernet and PCI Express SerDes solutions. And this was on Intel's 22 nanometer and 40 nanometer process technologies way back in 2008. So that's amazing, Tony. And currently he is the CEO at Alphawave IP. And some proud associations with Tony. He has been a user of CMC as a graduate student himself, and currently serves as a member of CMC's advisory committee as well. So I'll hand it over to you, Tony, from here. And if you have any suggestions on how you would like to take questions through mic or chat or in between, you can please share that.
I am fine with active questions throughout a presentation. I think these things go much better if they're interactive rather than unidirectional.
Sure. Thank you. I will stop sharing and I'll hand over the presentation to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Gayatri. Great introduction. Let me share my screen. I will just put it into presentation mode. And thank you everyone for making time today. Focus of my talk is going to be more around providing insight, my experience, my suggestions and recommendations on how to be an entrepreneur on businesses focused on technology. You know, there's a lot of books, MBAs, graduate studies you can spend on building new businesses, building technology businesses. I'll give you a crash course based on life experience. Gayatri gave you background, sold off 2 companies. Alphawave, which is my current company, we're 85 engineers and growing, targeting an IPO in 2021. So lots of experience on small private technology businesses. Well, maybe not so small. In terms of why become an entrepreneur, look, only a select breed have the emotional fortitude to be an entrepreneur. Most engineers love problem solving. However, there's a lot around engineering companies that aren't technical problems, logistical problems, operational problems, human resource problems, business problems, sales problems. And so it takes a rare breed that enjoys the diversity of work rather than the maniacal focus of engineering problem solving, okay? So if you enjoy the diversity, ultimately the common thread I've seen in all successful entrepreneurial leaders is they are extremely confident in themselves, and that confidence in themselves makes it difficult for them to work for anyone else, all right? And so if you have that self-confidence that drives you to believe that you can do something better under your own guidance than anyone else's, then being an entrepreneur is a great fit for you, okay? As I stated here, it's exciting, it's scary, and it's certainly never boring, all right? The benefits are you have complete control. Well, no, you think you have complete control. At the end of the day, you don't. But yes, there's no one that you directly report into aside from your board of directors or your customers. And your employees, because at the end of the day, you're accountable to them. So you have the feeling of control, but look, you never have complete and sole control. You don't have to please a boss, so you don't have to worry about the personality of your direct report. But as I said prior, you still have to manage those that work with you, those that you serve, which are your customers, and potentially a board of directors that will always sit above you. A lot of times when you work for a big company, you can do a great job, but you may not get the recognition that you deserve. Being an entrepreneur is the way to put your hard work most tangibly in the path of value. So your hard work can directly impact your company's market value and ultimately impact your benefit, your upside. So if you're confident that you can deliver high quality work and you are great with people and you feel like you should be benefiting more from your innovation, this is definitely the right opportunity for you. On the flip side of this, yes, you can benefit from your success, but you cannot do it all yourself. You will have to have a team around you, all right? So the initial employees, the initial team around you. You will have investors, whether it's through A rounds, B rounds, C rounds, strategic investors, angel investors. And so you will also have to share your upside with others because you need to keep your employees incentivized, and investors are there to make money, which means they will want a substantive portion of that upside in order to garner their target returns. And finally, if you like doing a bunch of cool stuff and problem solving, whether it's business problems, whether it's technical problems, whether it's legal problems, whether it's finance problems, whether it's operational problems. I'll give you an example. It's 2:14 on the East Coast today. I've already had a business sync with my executive team. I've had a technical meeting today. I've had a legal meeting and a operational meeting. Okay, so if you like diversity, if you like constant interruptions, being an entrepreneur is definitely the right thing for you. However, it's very hard, especially early in your career, for anyone to be an expert on technical, business, legal, finance, operations. So as much as you enjoy this diversity, you need experts. If you want to win, you need to have the right caliber of executive team around you. So you will need to build a team of trusted domain experts on the business side, technical, legal, finance, sales, operations. You cannot do it all yourself, especially if you scale and you want to be successful and compete against the best in the world. You will need to form a team that is the best of the world. So I will pause for 5 seconds at the end of each slide in case anyone wants to jump off mute and chime in with their 2 cents or questions. If I don't hear anything, I'll just move on to the next slide. All right, so hopefully that kind of sets the groundwork of the pros and cons of delving into becoming self-reliant. What I've highlighted here is there's a bunch of textbooks you can read on the life cycle of new technology companies. I've taken from some of them and mapped them to what I see as a typical structure. And I will also try to highlight where the structure can change as we go through this. So, in general, it always starts with an idea. You have an idea, and sometimes The end defines the idea. Sometimes the idea defines the end. Okay, so if you want to IPO, you need an idea that can get you to IPO. So if the end defines the idea, well, if IPO is your target, you need to hit a market that can get you to the types of revenues and EBITs that you can IPO on, and that drives the idea process. Some technology problem solvers just come up with an idea and are able to translate it to a business, and only a scant few can translate it to a profitable public business. But after you get through that idea, then you need to act. So you take the decisive step to act. Between action, after you decide to act, you may need investment immediately, you may not. And I'll talk about this gap and the benefit of distancing this gap, at least the benefit to the founders, if you can distance this gap as much as possible. And so there is a difference between seed investment and an initial investment round, like a Series A round. They have different objectives, and I'll walk you through that. Now you have money, you have VCs that believe enough to invest in you to get to a prototype and to start winning some early customers. So you now need to build a team and build a viable product. And I'll walk you through what that process typically looks like. At some point, you have a prototype, you've built a team. Now you need to take it into full-blown mass production. That needs yet further investment in semiconductors. That means typically another spin. And companies, great companies, are not built on a single product. They're built on a portfolio. So these subsequent rounds are not just about taking a single product to production, but moving from being a single product shop to a portfolio shop. You also need design wins, so you need to build a customer base. As you scale your customers, as you scale your portfolio, your corporate structure needs to scale. You can't stay flat throughout this whole process. So you also need to scale your structure. And then eventually, assuming that you've been successful and able to compete on all these fronts, you can now return some liquidity to those that have invested in you. Whether it's your investors or whether the employees that have joined you along this process. So that'll be the topics. I will try to quickly hit. Obviously, we can't do a deep dive on all of these in an hour, but I'll try to quickly hit them. Few tidbits on the right. My own perspective. VCs aren't there to help you succeed. They're there to generate a return on their investment. All right. And so the minute that they believe that their return would benefit from having someone else in charge, they will try to replace you. And all of the agreements that they will have you sign to get that initial investment round or subsequent investment rounds will contain provisions that ensure them the highest likelihood of them garnering a return on their investment. Okay. So VCs are there to cultivate business opportunities and take over winning businesses. Most, and probably rightfully so, because most great innovators aren't great businessmen. And he who came up with the technical solution to his idea probably does not have the right skill set to scale a large corporation or take a company public. Some are, and you see them in the news. Some founders are able to traverse and stay in control throughout the whole process. Most aren't. Canadian VCs are the worst, especially in semi. All right, they don't understand semi. They don't understand the investment associated with semi and the way they give you investment and the conditions on the investment, I think are contradictory to what's needed to be successful in semi. So if anyone has questions on that, I'll be more than glad to dive deeper. But my suggestion is avoid Canadian VCs if you're going to be in technology. Focus on VCs that understand your market, understand the levels of investment in your market, and are prepared to give you the level of investment to give you a fighting chance to succeed. Because starving you of the cash that is inevitable to be successful is ensuring that you will fail, or at the very least, you will fail as a leader and they will replace you. And finally, the right business plan always starts with a customer. Okay, most people think it starts with a product and then the customers come. I think it starts with a product and a customer. And the longer you can go on your own without external investment. So if you can win a customer over with your product idea and even get some money into the company ahead of needing external investment, the better off you'll be, because it shows that your product idea is valuable, and the more value you bring, the more value you retain, and the less value the VCs can acquire. All right, so super important, get involved with customers early. If you're not good with customers, or you don't have a network for customers, or being able to bring over customers, find someone that does, or don't become an entrepreneur.
Hey, Tony, I have a quick question, if this is appropriate time.
Sure.
So it's an interesting take you have on VCs, but like, what's your opinion on incubators, like that are there to help you, but partner with VCs? Is it still kind of something to be cautious of, or is that kind of like a different breed where they work with VCs that are to help you?
Yeah, look, a VC is an investor, and their focus is not to help you, right? It's to generate a return. And so long as your interests are common, you can view it as help, but it's really not help, okay? The technology industry, the semiconductor industry, Silicon Valley is littered with bodies of companies that have gone, that just blew up. For every one success, I can probably think of 10 failures, right? So you need just be aware with your eyes open. And VCs have seen this, and they know what the probability of success is. So they will structure the rounds to protect them as best as they can. And that protection always comes at your sacrifice as an innovator. All right, sacrifice in terms of control, percentage ownership, share rights. They get different classes of shares. They get their money out. Most early investors get all of their money out plus a multiplier before you, as a founder, get a chance to get a penny out of the company. All right. So I don't call those terms as friendly terms, right? That to me, that's not a partnership. So, but the reason they get to demand that is they're bringing something essential to the business, which is money, something you're not able to bring. So if you don't want to accept those terms, then bring some money to the table, which is customers. Okay, customers have money. So in terms of incubators, yeah, incubators are there. They can help you. In semi, I mean, office space is helpful. Getting early access to legal is helpful, but it's helpful for sure. It's helpful. Shared office space is helpful. I mean, there's a bunch of different things you can use to try to accelerate your startup. But at the end of the day, I think the essential parts of a business, incubators really can't help, which is technology, the capital expenses needed to build semiconductors, which is EDA tools and foundry access, which CMC can provide for certain technologies. And customers, as well as a team. Those are the essential pieces. Everything else is operational, which I think incubator or not, it's not going to be a driving factor in your business.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to inspiration. Focus on what you're best at. Okay, your highest likelihood of success comes leveraging your expertise. So if you're a new graduate, if anyone on this call is a new graduate, your probability of success, not having worked in the field, not having established a reputation and or a network, your probability of success is extremely slim. All right. So I always tell new graduates, spend at least 5 years becoming an expert in the space that you work in. All right. At the end of the day, business is all about trust. Customers will work with you if they trust you. Partners will work with you if they trust you. Employees will work with you if they trust you. So you need to establish a reputation that will garner people's trust. That only comes from working in the trenches, separating yourself from others by your performance, whether it's and both internal to your company as well as external to your company. All right. So best probability of success is if you've already established yourself as an expert. Then next, look, fads. Fads are hot, whether it's for teenagers, whether it's for shopping preferences, but in technology, there are always fast-growing hot topics, and investment dollars, whether it's from customers or from third-party investors, always follow the trends. So if you're an expert in a space that's hot, that's fast-growing, you know, your probability of success and inspiration improves. So try to come up with an idea on stuff that's hot, because money chases items that are hot. And these days, especially in semiconductor, what region of the world are you focused on? And the reason being, we're entering another Cold War, and this next Cold War is between the US and China, or the West and the East, and the battleground is semiconductor. All right, so you're having two silos of ecosystems that are either built in the West or aggressively being built in China. And the ability for technology to flow across these two silos is becoming extremely limited, and at some point in the near future may stop. And here in Canada, we're still able to trade with the East for now. We're still able to trade with China, specifically on semiconductors. But the US is exerting tremendous pressure on Canada to slow that down, if not stop it. And at some point it may stop. So there are business models underway trying to serve both or one of these. And again, that's part of an inspiration that you can establish a business on right now to try to benefit from. And ultimately, as I said before, get work experience first. Your probability of success increases dramatically if you've established yourself as an expert, because it all comes down to trust. And trust is not something they teach you at school, how to get it, how to keep it. It only comes through hard work.
That's a great point you mentioned, Tony, on the Cold War kind of situation brewing in the fab world with semiconductors. I think it's an important thing to acknowledge, and I think, as you mentioned, a great space to, you know, build ideas to find those links and keep the work going.
Yeah, but both countries, US and China, have virtually limitless dollars, and they're prepared to invest it. And this war is being fought using semiconductors.
Great. It's an important one to keep our eyes on.
Yeah, absolutely. There are companies, including mine, that are adapting and trying to leverage. Okay, so you have an idea. You've established a reputation for yourself. It's in a hot growing market. You understand your geographies. You're tired of doing what you're doing. Let's assume you're a professor at a university and you're tired of playing university politics, or you work for a big company and you're tired of dealing with big company politics. You want more recognition, you want more control, you want more reward. Now, how do you get into action? Can't do it by yourself. All right, if you think you can, you pretty much doomed yourself to failure. So you need a trusted team around you. So how do you build that leadership team? Hopefully, in your years of experience, there's a group of people, both on a technology, on a business, on a sales side, on an operational side, that you've established a strong relationship with. And what you'd like to do is tap into your network and build a core team, right? A CEO, a VP of engineering, maybe a ops lead, maybe a manufacturing lead. You get a core group of people. You don't need a 10-person leadership team, but hopefully 3 to 4 people that share your passion, share your desire to be an entrepreneur, buy into your product and your company dream, and are willing to take the plunge with you. If you do, then the next step is, how can you engage with customers early? All right, there's nothing like getting early customer feedback. And so if your ideas in a space that you've worked in, and if you have built a strong network of customer contacts in those years that you've been building up your experience, and if it's a field that you understand, you should be able to leverage your customer contacts to pitch the idea. So before you talk to a VC or an angel investor, I suggest you should be pitching your idea to potential customers. Because of the 3 businesses I've been involved in, they've never ended up with the area or product that I originally intended. And that just means we were customer driven, okay? Along the way, customers changed our path and we adapted to it in order to succeed. Can you get to a prototype quickly and cheaply? And the reason being, the earlier you can demonstrate your idea, demonstrate your value without bringing in investment, can significantly change the cap table of your company. All right, so I'll give you an example. If you have an idea and you need investment immediately to build your idea, and if all you have is the idea, VCs can take anywhere between 51 to maybe 65% of the company on day 1 after the A round. And by the time you get through B, C, D round, original founders could be left with under 5%. And that's only if you're in the company. If the VCs have eliminated you from the company, it could be significantly less from there. But if you're able to get to a prototype and have early customer buy-in, or even secured an early customer, at that point, VCs may be taking 49% or even less, okay? 30%, 20% in that A round. And so the faster you can build that prototype, demonstrate your value, gain early customer traction, can significantly impact your control and your ownership within the company. Any questions on this? All right, seed investment. So my 2 cents, best seed investment is from an early customer. All right, if you can get your key when you start a company should be, how can you get a customer to put some money in up front? All right, that will go a huge way to validating your idea with investors. The easiest customer is the second customer, right? So, you know, even being able to tell other customers that you already have a design win is huge. But more importantly, seed investment hopefully can get you to a prototype. And by having a customer or an angel typically is someone that invests in technology companies but isn't that active, so they're not a formal VC. It's sometimes an individual or a family fund. They typically are more hands-off. All right. Government programs are there. Government programs, and I mean, Canada, I think is great. One of the best in the world in terms of trying to support technology startups. But look, it's not lucrative. I think if you're chasing government funding in order to succeed, because you can't get customer support, I'd revisit your idea. So my opinion, government programs are helpful, especially in early stages. I think SR&ED is a fantastic program. Probably the most compelling that we offer. I think EDC for exports and some of the services and financial support they offer is also excellent. I think this helps level the playing field globally for Canadian startups, but it's there to help a growing, thriving, profitable business. It's not there to fund an idea. Okay, so you got to build the idea on your own, and you got to build the business, and government programs can help you grow it, but ultimately you got to build the business. All right, so now let's assume you've built the prototype. So you have the core team, you've taken on some seed investment from an angel investor or early customer. You know, your team has grown as well. Now it's time to take the bigger step, right? Let's assume you need, look, they say if you're going to try to build a big chip, like an AI chip or a large SoC these days, the level of investment that that you need is on the order of, they say 200+ million. Okay, so if you want to go in big into the semiconductor business, you need a lot of dollars, and that's just the money you need to get into the black on your first product. So it's a huge capital investment. So I'll give you an example. If you know the going rate is 200 million to get to the black, and you sign an A round that's 20 million. Clearly, that means you have another 180 million to raise. And if you've already given away 51% of the company just to get 1/10 of your total investment, doesn't bode well for your success. All right. And now, what are VCs looking at? I mean, I've seen individuals, leaders of companies, they had a great business plan. Let's assume, they could make happily 20 million a year, 30 million a year max. But unfortunately, they took on 10 million of VC money up front. So let's look, what do VCs expect when they give you money? So if a VC invests $1, they typically want $7 to $10 in return. All right. So in the example I show you here, if a VC invests $20 million into an A round, they're looking ideally for a 200 million return. They might be happy enough with 150, 170 million return. So if they own 50% of your company, then you need a path to getting to a $400 million valuation, right? Because the VCs want a 200 million return on their 50% ownership. That means in order to justify a 400 million valuation, let's assume it's a 8x or a 7x revenue multiplier, okay? So that means you need a path to getting to 60 million in annual revenue at a reasonable earnings in under 5 years. And so when you take that 20 million, you need to be able to justify to yourself as well as the investors that you have a path to getting to 60 million in under 5 years, because that's your timeline, 10x return in under 5 years, right? That's the typical VC investment profile. So going back to that initial example, I knew great people that started companies that could make 10 to 20 million a year, but by taking 10 million in VC funding, they then have had to alter their business plan and take a much more aggressive route in order to create a $100 million revenue profile that their existing profitable business couldn't justify. And as such, their businesses ultimately failed because they took these ulterior paths in order to try to pay off and hit the returns of the VCs. And what was originally a great private business became a failed business because they took in this external capital. All right, so just be aware that when you take on money, there's an expected return, and that initial idea you had has to justify that return. Typically, by the time a company is sold or IPO'd, original founders own less than 15% aggregate. And as I told you in the past, if you fail on your plan, you will be replaced. Any questions on this? This tends not to be something that's published often.
Tony, Peter Stokes here. Really interesting stuff. Hey, can you, I'm not quick on the uptake here. Can you connect to me, please, that top line revenue of 60 million with the 400 million?
So it's valuation. How do you value a company, right? There's revenue multipliers and there's EBIT multipliers. EBIT multipliers are based on earnings, but let's assume a revenue multiplier, let's assume it's between 6 to 7x revenue, right? So the market cap of a company is tied to 6 to 7x revenue.
Okay,
so
got it.
this is, you know, almost a 7x revenue multiplier. I just rounded things in this example to tens of millions, but you know, for a technology company with a reasonable EBIT, a 6 to 7 revenue multiplier is very fair. If your EBIT if your EBIT is lower, which is earnings before interest tax, so if you're less profitable, then your revenue multiplier comes down. Most technology companies tend to be valued on EBIT. Some are valued on revenue.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. So now team building. I have a term I've used over and over. You know, risk does not add, okay? Risk compounds. So every risk you take, especially early on in your business, compounds, all right? So that means it multiplies. So it gets amplified. The more risk you take, the more your overall risk amplifies, okay? So one thing that is more firmly in your control is the team you surround yourself by. So you can't control the market. You can't control your competitors. You can't control geopolitics. So select who you work with and who you bring into your company carefully, okay? I believe, again, if you've spent time in the workplace and if you've spent time in well-functioning organizations, you can understand a structure, and I don't believe you should, you know, the structure of a company on day 1 or day 365 is the right structure for a company that's pre-IPO or generating 100 million in revenue. But what you can do is have an eye on that scaled structure. So as you're bringing in people, you can see a path to get there should you need to get there. Okay, so don't implement structure for the sake of it, but understand how a successful company must evolve, and make sure as you're building a team, you have the key pieces available to you to help you scale. My last recommendation is in companies, you know, you can't always be successful. Mistakes are inevitable. However, you just can't screw up early. If you screw up early, you're dead. So work with known quantities in early days, right? Work with people that you trust, that you know you can deliver with. That's one way to mitigate this compounded risk. Okay. Productization and subsequent investment. So yeah, this is a big one, all right? Only from managing large successful organizations can you come to appreciate profitability. This is what the market appreciates and rewards. So over my businesses, I have become much more maniacal on profitability these days than I had way back in our first startup, which was Snowbush. This has helped dramatically. It helps decision making. It makes decisions really easy when you look at the earnings and investment will generate for you. And it helps when you're talking to bankers and investors if you can speak the same language as them. So my suggestion is get to revenue and profitability as quickly as you can, all right? If an idea needs 8 years of investment, like a winery, before you can turn $1 of revenue, and maybe 12 years before you can become profitable, that's not going to be a desirable investment for most. So adapt, try to figure out a way to get to profitability as quickly as you can. As I mentioned earlier, none of my businesses have precisely taken the path that I thought. Let's say it was a path to the right. If customers push you to the left and it's more profitable, it makes business sense, then steer left. Yeah, don't be scared to screw it up. As I told you, your odds of success are not in your favor. So don't push an idea if the writing's on the wall. Okay, adapt. And be prepared for more investment. B, C, D, E rounds. Most companies I know that have IPO'd have at least taken a D round, if not many more. But be aware, these later rounds that you bring on to help you survive is typically where founders get wiped out and thrown out. All right, so don't build a plan that requires a B, C, D, E, but be aware that you might need a B, C, D, E. And if you do need a D and an E, you may not be around to benefit from an ultimate upside. And there's a company, Infi, I think they took a G round. Okay, most of the founders were gone. Some of the founders still remain, but most of them were gone. And now they're wildly, doing really, really well in our industry. But try to get to profitability early. Try to minimize the number of rounds you need. That's your way to improve your likelihood of success. Design wins. Okay, sales. Most engineers dislike salespeople. They view them as sleazy or slimy, not trustworthy. At the end of the day, sales is the lifeblood of all companies, okay? So don't have a disdain for it. If you're a technologist, appreciate it for what it is. It's the blood that allows your company to thrive and live, all right? So embrace it. Embrace it, okay? It honestly should drive your organization. So hopefully you're an engineer that appreciates sales and you can help drive sales. So embrace it. And ultimately, as I said at the beginning, build trust with your customers. The easiest sale is a repeat sale. So spend time early in your career cultivating the relationships, building the trust, so that when it's time for you to sell for your own company, you've already established the trust of your customers. Now, corporate scaling. So let's assume you've launched your first product, it's in mass production, you have numerous design wins, you have a growing revenue, you're on the path to profitability, or you are profitable, or you're soon to be profitable. Now you need to scale your organization, all right? You need to start introducing more and more hierarchy. Right now you may have, early on, companies are flat. Then you may have two levels, one layer of managers beneath the CEO and the leaders of the organization. But as you grow, engineering needs to segment itself into various disciplines and hierarchies and spans and reporting levels. Operations needs to separate out, sales separates out, marketing separates out, applications engineering, finance, legal, operations. Disciplines need to separate, need to have a reporting structure and leaders that can lead all of these various organizations. So hopefully, as you were building a company, you knew the ultimate structure you would need to expand to, and you've identified people that you can and are working for you that you would entrust into these key leadership functions. And then you pull in from external worlds others to replace the remaining gaps. But hopefully, as you've been growing, that core leadership group is able to expand and fill the key leadership spots. All right. Now, also understand, typically founding CEOs, which are the innovators, tend not to be the CEOs that take a company into profitability and tend not to be the CEOs that IPO businesses. All right. So understand what your strengths are and understand what is the norm and what your investors are used to, and be prepared for it. All right. Typically, there's on average 3 CEOs before a company goes public. So if you're a control freak, you may want to consider taking in an external investment. Maybe a small private business is better for you. All right, my last slide, and we've got 7 minutes. IPO, so always dream big. One thing I've learned is I've undersold and undercut myself with my earlier businesses. And what that means is I started them happy enough to make 50 million in revenue or garner 100 million market cap. I now realize a successful entrepreneur starts off thinking, how am I going to build the next $10 billion business? All right. So never build a company to sell. My suggestion is always build a company to be the next major listing on the NASDAQ or Dow Jones or the Toronto Stock Exchange, although I wouldn't encourage you to list on the TSE if you're a tech company. And if you really want high valuation, perhaps on the Star Exchange in Shanghai. Dream big, okay? As you dream big, sell yourself, sell that vision. Companies, customers, investors, they want to see, they're excited about participating in exciting endeavors. So if they see a $10 billion plan in place with a desire to get to a $10 billion plan, that will establish trust much more than a small private proprietor that could get acquired for $30 million next week. Okay, so establish that vision to everyone. Early on, hopefully you will also establish relationship with investment bankers. And in commerce and in business, investment bankers are the buyers and the sellers, right? They work for the buyers and the sellers. So there's a whole information pipeline through the investment banking community. And the earlier off they're aware of you, the earlier off they're excited about what you're doing, the more news will get out to the buyers and the sellers about you. All right. So you need to participate with them. And what do you need for a successful IPO? What the bankers will tell you is you need 12 consecutive quarters of revenue growth. You need over $100 million of revenue over the last 2 quarters, and you need earnings of hopefully 30% or higher. Okay, so if you want to IPO as you're building your business plan, these are the 3 requirements. that you should be building in. If you can't see a path to getting to this level, I think it'll be hard to pay off any VC without an IPO. Definitely you can't plan on an acquisition because you never know what the valuation and when or if that'll come. So you have to plan on an IPO to pay off your VCs, and this is what you got to plan towards. So to wrap things up, what are the keys? Relationship and trust. All right, that's hopefully, if you remember one thing from this, it's successful businesses are built on relationships and trust. So early in your career, when you work for someone else, cultivate them. As you form your early leadership team and the group of founders, grow them so you can work with people that you trust. Leverage them early on in your business to find key customers. Tap into your social network to grow your team as your business is growing. Bring on advisors to help, advisors and even domain experts, whether it's on business, legal, finance, as you grow your business in order to help your company expand and mature. And ultimately, you need to exploit them, all right? Business is done via relationships. It's why business travel existed up to 5 months ago, because it was all about the relationship building. So, you know, ultimately, the surest way to cultivate relationships and trust is deliver on what you promise, all right? So people have long memories throughout your career. Deliver on what you promise. And that is it. Hopefully this has been useful. Hopefully there's some key learnings and or insights I've provided. This talk is meant to try to inspire, but also to prepare. You know, you're swimming with sharks out there. The area we play in, you know, its market cap is hundreds of billions of dollars. So there's a lot of money floating around, which brings a lot of savvy business people into it. And so if you're going to dive into this ocean, be prepared to swim with sharks.
Thank you, Tony. That was very, very informative and lots of good guidance there, I'm sure. Lots of good insights as well.
If anyone has any specific questions or would like a follow-up, I will post my email, or Gayatri can distribute it. Feel free to ping me, and I'll be more than glad to share my thoughts offline as well.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Okay, that's it for me, Gayatri.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? So we will share the slides from Tony, and please feel free to connect. And thank you once again, Tony. This is very, very informative and very helpful.
Hey, can I ask Tony a quick question?
Sure, go ahead.
So Tony, I think you mentioned that, you know, starting a silicon hardware company or even a silicon IP company is expensive, right? With all the EDA tools and the chips and test equipment and all. And you would want your customer to pay for it and not the VC. But if you're starting obviously you're a veteran, you started one, then another, then another. The second and third one gets easier because you have built a track record. How does a new team start a company and do that?
So there's a company that was founded by Silicon Valley technologists from Marvell. They formed a company called Annapurna Labs. Okay. Eventually, Annapurna, I think, was acquired for $350 million by Amazon, and now that group of founders runs all of silicon engineering for Amazon. So they make all the decisions for Amazon's in-house processors and accelerators and such. So how did that, and that team got a early it wasn't a full design win, not a full commit, but they definitely had a MOU, memorandum of understanding, from their lead customer. And how did they do that? Because they worked at Marvell for years. One of the founders was in the CTO office. The other one was a VP and GM of a business unit. So they had delivered silicon to their Annapurna lead customer for years. Okay, they had been in the trenches with their customers and helped get out of problems with those customers, and they'd established trust with those customers. Now, as part of Marvell, they had done it, but at the end of the day, trust is never with an organization. It's always with the people that you're dealing with, okay? And so when they left, that trust followed them, and they were able to secure that lead customer because of that trust that they'd formed. And that's what I tried to indicate at the beginning of the call. Spend years becoming an expert, cultivate relationships, not only internally, but with customers. That will set you up to make that pivot when you go out and try to branch out and do something on your own, okay? Without that trust, it's virtually impossible. You need to have a killer app and a prototype in hand in order to win that trust from anyone, because you've not demonstrated your capability to them. And that's the same process by which I've done it, okay? Why did those, that lead customer enable me through the various startups? Because I had earned their trust in the past with past companies I had formed or been part of.
Thank you.
Okay, if no other questions.
I had a quick question about the portfolio that you mentioned. It's better to have multiple products rather than one. And I understand that because it de-risks your, I guess, situation. But like as a startup who's trying to bootstrap their business with one customer, for example, is it specifically better to focus on one product, then get it out, and then work on the portfolio, or should you diversify right away?
Your business plan needs to be a portfolio, okay? I also do some private investing as an angel investor in technology, and if someone walks in and just shows me a business plan for a single product, forget it. It just shows immaturity. So your business plan needs to have a portfolio of products, okay? Now, you will most certainly pick one of the products, the key product initially, and work on that. But your plan needs to be to deliver a portfolio. And now a smart entrepreneur will also have a way of taking that first product and then through some low risk, low cost derivative work can spawn a portfolio of products out of that initial product. Okay, so your play always needs to be a portfolio play. You always start with a single product development, but if you know you got to get to a portfolio, try to think of how to do so in as efficient and quick a manner as you can.
Right, thank you.
You know, the old days of small ICs were the best. You build a single die and they package it 50 different ways, and companies like Maxim and TI, would have portfolios of IC products that were all, page and page of different SKUs, all built out of a single die, but bonded out differently through packaging. And that's a portfolio play. You invest in a single development, but then you can very quickly and efficiently through a bunch of different packaging techniques spawn a portfolio of products. Okay, that's what I'm trying to encourage here.
I see. So you really don't need to like proof or test these products, right? It's just more of ideas or concepts that can
market. If you got to get to a portfolio, can you do so out of one die and multiple packages, or can two die with multiple packages result in 10 different products? Okay, that's what VCs are looking for. That's what customers are looking for. How quickly can you hit critical mass as a company, which is move beyond a single product. And so if you know you need to get there, what's the most efficient way of getting there? Because if your business plan is on a single product, what if there is no real synergistic portfolio, right? What if you're creating a can opener and there's no other adjacency around can openers? So now you're, you're even if you're successful as a can opener, you're a one-hit wonder. So how are you going to get to that 100 million plus 12 quarters of straight revenue growth, right? Your market's capped, you're limited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is really useful. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tony.
Good luck with your endeavors. I hope to see you guys on the front of Forbes one day.